Hello, beautiful souls. Today's episode is so good. And before we jump in, I have some exciting news to share. If you've ever wondered where you're blocking money, this is for you. I've created a free quiz to diagnose your money wounds so you can heal them and unblock yourself to receive more money. Just go to moneywoundsquiz.com and answer 6 quick questions to get your insanely accurate and potent results. And if you're loving my vibe and want to work one-on-one to call in more feminine energy wealth, I would love to hear from you. You can shoot me a DM on social media or go to emilywilcox.com to learn more. Hello, and welcome back to the M Makes Money show. How are you guys doing? Oh my gosh, I can't believe it's spring. I can't believe it's April. I don't know if anyone else is already feeling like, wow, we're through 25% of the year. Like, how did that happen? But definitely the time change here in Southern California has made such a tremendous difference. It's like staying light so much longer and just feeling that vibration of things coming back to life. We're getting a little bit more sunshine, and energetically, spring is such a beautiful season after that winter where it feels like everything is dead. To start to see the signs of life and the new buds popping out on trees and grass poking out of the ground and all of that is very true in our lives and businesses as well, and it doesn't always coincide, of course, with actual spring. But when we're in that energy of starting to see the tangible evidence of the things that we know, right? Like we know it's been happening under the surface, and yet sometimes we question it when there's no evidence, right? And Abraham Hicks always says, believe it until you see it, instead of, I'll believe it when I see it. It's like, no, believe it until you see it. Know that it's happening. Trust that it's happening. There's an inevitability to it. And then you get to have the evidence and go, yes, this feels so good. So here is where we are at. I am going to be talking to you about March, all of the celebrations and stretches. March was an interesting month because I had like all of these ambitious things from a business perspective. And then when I actually looked at my calendar and got real with myself, I had to do a bit of a reckoning. So maybe that's happened to you before as well, where it's like, hang on, when I actually look at the hours available and I look at my to-do list, there is a mismatch. And before, I never used to do this. Frankly, like years ago, not that many years ago, to be completely honest, but let's call it, I don't know, 6, 7 years ago, I would just load up my to-do list and it was like, there was no buffer. There was no checking in with reality. It was like, if everything goes perfectly according to plan, this is still an ambitious list to get done. And then, of course, things didn't go according to plan. Of course, there were like random meetings and things that popped up and needed my attention, or certain things took longer. And so I would end every week feeling a little disappointed in myself and feeling like I was carrying over tasks from the week before. And it's been the biggest gift to actually get real with things and not get real in terms of like not recognizing what a badass, productive, efficient person that I am, but like getting real with life and the way that life happens, AKA building in buffer time and not having a week that's structured where like I only can feel good about it if everything goes perfectly, because otherwise I'm not going to get it all done. It's like, instead, let me look and be like, you know what? This week's actually feeling really full. And wouldn't it be a gift to myself if I just changed my expectation around what else was going to get accomplished aside from what's already here? So that definitely happened with March because it's both of my kiddos' birthday month. So there was like extra special things happening around that for each kiddo. And then my mother-in-law came out for a visit, and more on that in a minute. But like she's still here a month later. And then it was also the kiddos' spring break. So when I looked at all of that, it's like, yeah, okay, this is not, it's not realistic for me to think that I'm going to get all of these big work projects done that I'm excited about and that I want to do, because March is more about family and making memories and really making it count, with each of my kiddos' birthdays and with spring break. And, there are like those memes of like, you only get 18 summers with your kids. And to some degree, I'm like, whatever, go F off, like I'm not going to not have a relationship with my kids after they're 18, right? But it is true that like there is some truth to it. Like there aren't that many of these spring break trips. We get one spring break a year. So focusing on making memories and doing something fun as a family does feel really important when we're given that week, that chance to do it. And each of my kids gets one birthday a year. It's not like we have to go all out, but I want to remember it. I want to look back and think, oh yeah, I know what we did for JJ's 5th birthday. I know what we did for Faye's 8th birthday. So that was the overall vibe of the month. So from a celebrations perspective, definitely both kiddos' birthdays. For JJ, it was like our first time throwing a big party for him and him getting his own party. So we did a big joint party with both kiddos when Faye turned 5 and JJ turned 2. So of course he doesn't even remember it, but Jeff and I very much remember it because it was at this big indoor, like bounce house place called Pump It Up. And we did it on Wednesday, March 10th of 2020. That Friday, March 12th, which was Faye's actual birthday, was when all the schools and everything shut down in Southern California. I read an article the night after Faye's birthday party that made me think, you know what, we're not even going to send the kids to school on the 11th. So it was like this really crazy thing that all of us were like indoors and hugging and the kids were all playing. And then literally the very next day, everything changed. But again, JJ doesn't remember that at all. So he has been Chuck E. Cheese obsessed, mainly because they have a Ninja Turtles game that he loves. So he's been talking about this Chuck E. Cheese birthday party for months and months and months. And we got to make it happen. And we got like a big Ninja Turtle cake, all decorated. Like we did the whole 9. And it felt fun to do that. And I'm like, yeah, okay, we're not going to do that very often, because then with Faye, she chose to have an experience for her birthday, which involved us going to a concert. More details on that momentarily. But it's like when I compare the two, in my opinion, it was money much better spent to have the experience. And also then Faye was like, can I have like a little play date at our house? I'm like, yeah, okay. So she ended up inviting like a handful of friends. I think there were like 7 or 8 girls here. I bought each of them a little kit where it was like these tie-dye markers and you got to color your own like sleep mask and like one of those like spa headbands and a scrunchie. And then I bought these really cute like spa facial masks that were decorated as like animal heads. And so they like had a little spa party and, the whole thing cost a few $100s, whereas the Chuck E. Cheese party was like $1,500 or so when it was all said and done. I'm like, it was fun, but I don't know if it was $1,500 worth of fun. So, I like to keep it real over here. And obviously everyone's sense of value is different, but that's where my head was at. That said, it was so great to celebrate both kids' birthdays. And like now that JJ's 5, there's so many things he's doing on his own. He's like, Mommy, 5-year-olds get dressed by themselves. Mommy, 5-year-olds climb out of the bathtub by themselves. Mommy, 5-year-olds brush their teeth by themselves. So it's been kind of a fantastic identity upgrade where he is interested in being more independent and more participatory in certain self-care exercises than he was before. We also found a great mortgage broker in March and just kept our plans moving ahead on getting an income property. We haven't put any offers in yet, but we've been getting like more and more and more clear. We actually met with a good realtor as well and have someone actively looking at properties with us, which is exciting. I also discovered that this very own podcast has 15,000 downloads. So, yay! And thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much to you loyal listeners. It really is such a gift to have this space and to share. And honestly, I want to amplify it more. I don't think I talk enough about the mission behind this work. The mission is to heal our money wounds in community, to talk transparently about money, to change that taboo around money so we can all talk about it. We can rewrite our limiting beliefs around it. We can more easily welcome in more money, which helps everyone and it helps the whole planet. And I really believe that this podcast is an important piece of that. And that's why I bring on so many guests and I ask them questions about their money story and about how much they're making, because I want you to know what's possible, but I also want you to take people off of pedestals. Like there are people that seem so successful and then you hear how much they're making. It's like, oh, and then there are people where you're like, oh, wow. But then you hear their struggles with money and what they thought and how they felt, and you can resonate with that. And there's this feeling of like, oh yeah, me too. And it humanizes them. So it's not just this person that has some magical combination of things that we don't have. I think it helps us just realize that like having a different relationship with money and having the ability to make a lot of it, so much of that is a skill and a choice and a decision to do the inner work and actually doing it. It's not something that you were either gifted with or you have those genetics or you don't. So I really hope that this podcast is living up to that mission. And it is my deepest desire to continue amplifying that work. And, hopefully very soon, I'll be saying that those 15,000 podcast downloads are now 30,000 and we'll have doubled our reach. And so anytime you talk to a friend about this show or you share it, it really makes an incredible difference. So I just want to thank you so much for that. In March, we also went to Disneyland and we took grandma, which was really fun. She had never been, and she just told me multiple times like what a incredible experience it was and one of the most fun things that she's done in her life and how grateful she is to have the memory of doing that and experiencing it with the kids. And the kids would like fight over who got to sit next to her on a ride and just made her feel so special. And it's always so fun experiencing something through the eyes of someone else. And we really try to not take Disney for granted just because we live here and we have annual passes. But the best way to do that is go with someone who's never been before. And they're like, oh, wow, look at this. Oh my gosh, that. And it gets us all amped up and remembering just the appreciation and gratitude that we have for the magic of Walt Disney and what he created. So let me just jump down to a couple stretches before we round out the celebrations. So the plot twist of grandma coming out to visit is that she got COVID and she thought she had a cold and was like just resting up a ton. And after 4 or 5 days, we decided to take her to the urgent care and kind of insisted on it. And the urgent care said, no, they kept her there for a couple hours, ran a bunch of tests, and they're like, okay, she has COVID. Her oxygen levels are not good. She needs to go to the hospital. So then JJ and I took her to the ER and had to go through the whole rigmarole all over again before she finally at 9 p.m. that night was admitted into the COVID unit. And then she proceeded to spend 5 days in the hospital where then we could only visit her one at a time with an N95 mask and a gown and gloves and a face shield and like just the whole rigmarole. And it definitely was a plot twist. Not only did it take what had been a really good visit and something we looked forward to and something that fit very easily into our lives and schedules, and totally flipped it on its head to where we're trying to slot in who's going to go to the hospital and when, and then the other person needs to take the kids to their activities, and just was very logistically challenging. But she also was supposed to fly out a few days before we were going to fly to Texas for our spring break trip and for the concert that Faye chose for her birthday. And all of a sudden, all of those plans were up in the air as well. And it really was a practice of surrender and just taking it day by day. And also, I really let myself have a day where I was just like, this sucks. And, Jeff was trying to go into solution mode and I just wasn't there yet. I was like, all those solutions seem crappy and I'm just really bummed. And I share that because I think it's important for everyone to know the way that I model the work and that I put the tools into practice, and that a huge part of living an aligned life and being connected to your inner being is letting your feelings flow. Like, you don't have to immediately reframe everything. You don't have to immediately reach for a better feeling thought. You get to just be in a space of neutrality around how crappy you feel, if that makes sense. Like, you get to feel crappy and then not pile on and make yourself wrong for feeling crappy. So I just had a day that was like a pity party day. And then the next day I felt so much better and so much more willing to reach for solutions and so much more flexible around what those solutions might be. And then, of course, new things presented themselves as well. And the doctors were talking to Jeff and saying, like, you shouldn't cancel your trip. Like, it's all good. She's fine. She just needs to recover here. So, yeah, very challenging. And there were solutions available. We still got to go on our trip. She got great care in the hospital. We got to practice some next level receiving with having some friends step up to help and get her home and make sure that she was okay. And, we're all back here. It's all good. And we've been really enjoying having some time where she's feeling healthier and she's getting to visit with the kids and with us. But definitely a stretch, not going to lie. The other stretch was just kind of what I mentioned around like not having as much time in the month as I was hoping, which really didn't line up for like my ambitions for the month. I'm like, I want to get this many new clients and this and that. And then it was like, oh, actually, I get to maintain and create incredible memories with my family. But, there's just like the reconciliation of that. And we also, the truth of like how things have unfolded, because we had that friend staying with us that was going through like some marital challenges, and then the extension of grandma's trip, like we have not had the house to ourselves for a stretch of time in like months and months. So that's been an interesting one as well. Okay. Few more celebrations here that maybe will even make more sense in the context of the stretches. We went and saw Lion King at Fantages Theater, Lion King, the musical, I should clarify. And that was something that we had scheduled to do with grandma, but then she wasn't feeling good enough. So at the very last minute, we had Faye bring her best friend and we went. And it was really great and it was really fun. And it was a little bit triggering to one of my money wounds because it was, the tickets. And then we went out to this like fancy dinner, which ended up being like $700 or something. It was a great dinner. And then I saw the bill and was like, oh, I've had $700 dinners that I felt very satisfied with, but that one I did not. You know what I mean? It's like we were buying like kids drinks and it was two adults and two kids. I'm like, how is this $700? And I couldn't even take the leftovers with because we were going right to the theater. So just keeping it real with you all. But and it was a really cool experience. It was Faye's first time with musical theater. It was her bestie's first time with musical theater, and it was so special that they got to do it. And it ended up working out in a cute way because then we signed them up for summer camps where they're going to be working on singing performances. So I think they felt very inspired by the actor and actress who played young Simba and young Nala, because those kids were only 10 or 11 years old, and they're basically in like Broadway musicals. We also had an amazing time in Texas for spring break. We saw our favorite country music artist, Luke Combs, in concert. That man is just an incredible talent. Highly recommend if you like country music. He's just a cool dude, and he's got a very interesting but like signature style in songwriting, and the guy can sing. Oh my gosh, can he sing? So he's playing arenas this tour, or stadiums, maybe the same diff. So we saw him where the Dallas Cowboys play, which apparently was something that my husband had always wanted to do, was to go to that stadium. However, we both felt like the acoustics were not so great. But Luke's voice is so amazing that it was fine anyway. It was just like there wasn't that crisp clarity when he was like talking instead of singing. But nevertheless, it was super fun. And Jeff's brother and sister-in-law and their kiddos, who are like young adults, came as well. And then we drove with them down to Austin and spent 3 days in Austin visiting. And that part of the family is such a gift to us. Jeff and Todd are half brothers, and they really didn't form a relationship until somewhat recently, like within the last, I don't know, 8 or 10 years, maybe not even that long. And so they're just, no, I think it's been more like 5 or 6 years, actually, as crazy as that is. But they've been such a gift to us, and I know vice versa. And it just feels like this bonus family that we absolutely love to spend time with. Okay. March was also the first month ever of having all of my social media content batched and created in advance. And thank God, it could not have come at a better time, because as I mentioned, like there just wasn't a ton of extra time for creation in March. And so I felt so supported by having all of the content already there and scheduled and just being posted on my behalf. I also want to celebrate that one of my clients hit a $47,000 cash month in March with just 2 clients. How incredible is that? And in March, I delivered a totally new version of my Fempire program. This was my 3rd time teaching it, but I completely reimagined it, added in some sexy masculine structure, and created the entire Fempire method inside of that program. It's so, so good. I don't think I'm ever going to completely record it live fresh again, because I loved this version and it's just something so juicy to be built upon. So yay for me, yay for March. From a cash perspective, the money sitch is that we collected $69,478 with the agency, $12,664 cash in my coaching business, for a total of $82,142. So looking at Q1, I think it was like 279 or something like that. So on track for another $1 million plus cash year, which I'm super duper grateful for. And it's been interesting because like neither business has like had this big growth, which I'm kind of craving, to be completely honest. And there's been foundational work to be put in place for that. As many of you know, like last year with the agency, it was a focus on more profitability, and we did that. We were much more profitable last year at like the same 1.2 million than we had done the year before. And so this year it's like maintaining profitability, but also scaling. And so it's just taken some time, more time than we would like, to just ramp up our sales process and get me out of the sales process at the same time. So it's a work in progress. Same thing with the coaching business, where like I can't wait to just be welcoming in more clients. I'm working on some really exciting stuff behind the scenes to be able to serve more people at all different price points and just with different kinds of transformations. So stay tuned on that, but so much good stuff happening behind the scenes, so much good stuff in the works. If you're celebrating something exciting from March, please slide into my DMs, share it with me, share this episode, and then say what you were celebrating. It really is important for us to acknowledge all of the things that happen in these 30 or 31-day periods, because otherwise they just go by in a blink and we don't even recognize the magic that they held. So I take notes along the way. Otherwise, I wouldn't remember half of this stuff. And honestly, just being able to go back and look at my notes is such a gift to myself. So I highly, highly encourage this practice and would love to be the person that you share and celebrate with you. So thank you so much for listening. Sending you all my love, and I will talk to you soon. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning into today's show. Before you go, I have something fun to share. Now, when you leave a review of the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube, take a quick screenshot and send it to hi@emilywilcox.com. You'll be entered into a drawing to win a free one-on-one Voxer coaching day with me, and you help the show reach more new listeners. Such a win-win. I also invite you to follow me on Instagram @mmakesmoney and to jump into my free Telegram community, The Money Club, which is linked in the show notes. Until next time, I'm sending you all the magic money vibes.